What is up, everyone? Chris McDaniel with Summit Insurance. Want to make a video on auto insurance coverages and run through some basics here. Won't take too long on this, but I did want to put together something that is kind of an extension of the conversation with the agency or your current agent, and just kind of run through some things that I feel is important, and kind of run through the what we're looking at when you open up these coverages, so that you have some things that you can be prepared with, either to ask questions or to review with your current coverage pages. So I went ahead and put together kind of basically a default quote here through one of the carriers. And so when you get into the coverage, the first thing that you're going to look at is going to be the liability limits. And so the liability limits are essentially a protection against lawsuit. And so if you get into an accident and you're found to be at fault, whether that's 100% at fault or 51% at fault, if you're found to be at fault, your insurance coverage is going to be the one that they use to pay out claims. And so in this coverage here, they have what's called split limits. And so, not to get too technical, but split limits is the most commonly used form of liability limits on an auto insurance policy. And so the split limit here is 100, 300, 100. Can't see it. It's kind of trailed off there, but it's 100, 300, 100. So that's 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident, and then 100,000 in property damage coverage. So bodily injury, property damage, liability. So the 100,000 per person, if you get into an accident and someone's injured, and say that they have, $80,000 in injuries, this is going to cover that, cover their full cost. If they have $150,000 in injuries, it's going to max out at 100,000. That's the general gist of how they do the split limit coverage. If you get into an accident and there's 3 people injured and each one of them has 100,000 in injuries, this will cover up to 300,000 per accident. And so if there's multiple injuries and it extends beyond that, the insurance company is going to cap out at 300. Now, what happens after the fact, you can go read about state of Texas. Some states have, you get into lawsuits and they can garnish wages. I believe state of Texas, you can't do that, but you can go read on some of the outcomes with injuries if you do not have enough coverage, and some of the lawsuits that happen afterwards. So similar thing with the property damage coverage at 100,000. If you hit a Toyota Corolla, brand new, $25,000-$30,000, you're covered. If you hit a Bugatti or a Rolls Royce, that's 150, 250,000 or greater, it's going to cap out at the 100,000. And so extending beyond these coverages, the caps is what is, again, things that you can discuss with your agent about risk level, where you're at, the cost versus risk. So most insurance agents are going to want to recommend 250, 500 with an umbrella policy, if not single limit coverage, if you can find it. So there's a few things that you can do to surrounding this to have, cost per coverage. And it just kind of depends, if you're someone that has multiple claims and your cost, you're looking at, basically a mortgage bill. There's some areas here that you can work with that can help give you enough coverage as much as you can per your risk level, and make sure that you're getting as much out of your dollar investment into the policy that you can get. So uninsured motorist, underinsured motorist bodily injury, property damage coverage is going to be a similar dynamic as the liability limits. But this is going to be in the event that, you're involved in like a hit and run. If someone hits you and doesn't have enough insurance. So if you have the Bugatti and someone only has 25,000 in property damage coverage for their limits of liability. This uninsured motorist can step in and help meet the additional requirements. Now, it'll go up to 250,000 on this specific policy. But again, looking at different carriers, different coverage options, for your specific risk, your vehicles is something that we will run through and make sure that that we at least have the conversation. So uninsured motorist coverage, hit and runs, someone that doesn't have enough insurance coverage, especially within injuries. And before we move to the next thing, just injuries in general. If you get into an accident, you can't do the same thing that you did prior to the accident, such as, working. Say your average annual salary is $50,000. And so if you can't work for, 3 years or 5 years, that can very much add up well beyond the 250,000 limit. So if you're someone that has savings, family, you want to make sure that your finances are in order. The 250,000 with an umbrella policy is basically what we recommend. That's as far as a lot of agents will talk about full coverage. You can never be fully covered. You can just we can basically go to the policy to the extent that the policies will give us, and make sure that we're in the best position to help in the case of something happening.